All right, hey everybody, Guten Abend. My name is AJ, and I'm here to talk to you about your poop. Because you make a lot of it, a whole shit ton perhaps. But the point is, it's something that we all do, and yet we don't think about it that much. You just flush the toilet and it goes away forever, right? That's actually not the case. There are certain molecules in our poop called fecal stanols that can persist in soils for hundreds to even thousands of years, way after you're gone, and that makes them very valuable to anyone who wants to understand the past. So how do we make poop history? Let's dive into that. So first of all, we start with the origin of fecal stanols, which are these molecules of interest, and their parent molecule is cholesterol. Now, the first food that might come to mind for cholesterol is like meat, right? Like a hamburger or something. But I'm trying to watch my weight a little bit after that last talk, to cut down on the roundness there. So I went to a healthier alternative, milk chocolate, which has a lot lower cholesterol level. I think the doctor approves, maybe. And we got some chocolates going around the audience. If you want to go on this gastrointestinal journey with me, please feel free to grab one. So what I'm going to do here, let me just... It melted because it was in my pocket. All right, there you go. Okay, I've now ingested the cholesterol. It is now traveling into my gut, where it'll be food for me, but also for the many microbes that live in my gut and all of our guts. And they're going to try to have some of that food as well, including the cholesterol. Just going to swallow. All right, should have gone with something without the caramel. So the point is that they go for the cholesterol, but it's very difficult to break down. It's a rigid molecule, and instead they basically just take a little nibble of it, and most of the molecule stays as is. But because it's slightly different, it gets a new name. It's now called caprostanol. Now, caprostanol is a waste product of bacteria, and it's something that your body doesn't need. So what happens to the stuff in our body that we don't want? Yeah. Scheiße, all that. So that's what happens. And the next step is defecation. So allow me to just kind of, no, I'm not going to do that. That would probably get me arrested, but it's San Francisco, so maybe not. The next step is the toilet, right? And so that's the case for today. We actually have an incredible luxury to have toilets in modern plumbing. But in an archaeological perspective, for much of human history, that wasn't an option. So what did people do? Well, they practiced a form of open defecation, where they'd simply go outside into nature. And that brings us to our next example, using this in an archaeological site, and we will go to a place called Cahokia. Cahokia is one of the largest archaeological sites on this continent. It's located in southern Illinois, just across the Mississippi River from St. Louis. And today, Cahokia looks like this large collection of gigantic earthen mounds. But in the past, it was an incredibly large and bustling city, home to perhaps several tens of thousands of Native Americans about 1,000 years ago. And as the story goes, this city developed very quickly, but just as soon as it really reached its height, it quickly sort of went away and people dispersed back into smaller population groups. So population history is clearly important here, and I think a way to really completely understand it is to use poop. How do we do that? Well, first we got to think about what I just told you guys, that people are going poop out in nature, which might be the farmlands up at the top of this picture. And you can imagine how, after a rain event, that would wash this fecal matter into somewhere where it might collect, such as a lake. And we happen to have a lake right outside of Cahokia called Horseshoe Lake. And our thought process here is that as these fecal stanols wash in, they accumulate with time. And at any depth in the lake mud where we have a lot of them, that equates to a lot of people in the environment. And when we're basically looking at changes in these fecal stanols over time in making a population record. But in order to do that, you first have to get the mud out of the ground. It's not easy. I lost a shoe in the process, so there's like a shoe somewhere in that lake to this day. But once you get it, you take it to the lab. That's not poop, by the way. Coincidentally, lake mud looks a lot like it. The idea is that hopefully inside of this lake mud, there are molecules that originated in human poop. So we take it to the lab. extract it to get the molecules we need, and then run it on a mass spectrometer to first identify and also quantify our fecal stanols. Once we have those data, we can plot them, which we have here in these black and gray lines. And the way to read this is the higher the values, the more people we believe to have been present, and the x-axis is time. And so the first thing I think we can see is that the fecal stanol population record is both more comprehensive and nuanced than the existing archaeological population records that weren't made from poop. So I think it's a step up, and additionally it makes sense. So where we have the fecal stanol maximum, that corresponds to when most of the building was happening at this site, and where we have the fecal stanols in decline is when things seem to go kind of awry at this site. You know, there's evidence for people building a defensive wall. Probably people were leaving. Things weren't going perfect and according to plan. So right now we have this population record, but what can we do with it? And I think we can use it to understand why people would have left this magnificent site. And I also think it has something to do with climate change. So right after we have the peak in our fecal stanols, we find evidence for a large Mississippi River flood in these lake sediments. Now, as you probably know, the Mississippi River, when it floods today, is a huge problem, costing millions, if not billions of dollars in damage. And if it's such a problem to us now, it probably would have been a large issue to people 800 years ago. On top of that, right after the fecal stanol maximum and coinciding with the flood, we find evidence for a drought, as shown in a shift in the oxygen isotopes from this lake sediment. So not only was there a flood, but a drought, and I think that's manifestations of larger climate change as the world was shifting from medieval climatic anomaly to the medieval ice age. And we know all of this through poop. That's what ties it all together. So, where I'll leave you tonight is this. There it is. Next time you're taking a dump, think that you might be taking a part of history. Thank you very much.